He's a familiar face for Catholics across the Archdiocese of St. Louis. But now Archbishop-elect Mark Rivituso is preparing for a new chapter as the 10th Bishop and 3rd Archbishop of Mobile, Alabama. Today we sit down with Archbishop-elect Rivituso here at his childhood parish, St. Wenceslaus in South St. Louis, to reflect on his journey of faith, the lessons he's learned along the way, and his hopes for the road ahead. Archbishop-elect Rivituso, thank you for joining us today. Wanted to start by talking a little bit about the moment of your appointment. When you received the phone call from the Vatican, where were you and what was your immediate reaction to that?
Jennifer, whenever I received the phone call, I believe it was deja vu again, because when I was called about being auxiliary bishop, I was praying with people before a Mass at Annunciation. I didn't know who it was. It said Washington, D.C. I thought, well, if it's important, I'll get a message. Well, I didn't have a message on my voicemail. Next day, I get another one from Washington, D.C. I figured I better answer it, and that's when I found out from Archbishop Pierre at that time to present to me my appointment as auxiliary bishop. Well, I thought, once again, this happens. It was on June 21st, and I was actually, my phone was off. I was hearing confessions at St. Rayfield's, and I also had that day the 75th anniversary of the parish. So I went right from confessions. I only had 5 minutes to get ready for Mass. Then I had Mass, and then I had a reception afterwards. And then I didn't get the phone call, the voice message, until 8:30 that night, after everything was said and done. So I hope that the papal nuncio didn't think I was blowing him off. But I did get back to him that night, but he wasn't available. But I did leave a message, and I thought, well, I better at least try twice. So I did the next day. I called him, and then he immediately called me back, and he then mentioned to me that the Holy Father has appointed you to be Archbishop of Mobile. And I was a little bit taken aback. I asked him, Mobile, Alabama, just because there was some other Mobile that might be out there I didn't know about, Mobile, Alaska or something, so it was Mobile, Alabama. So there obviously is no thinking it over. I know that this is what the Lord's calling me to do, and I did give my consent. I believe, in part of my own theology of understanding of being a bishop, I thought once you were a bishop, the Holy Father could send you wherever He needed you to go. So I was presuming that when I was talking to the papal nuncio and saying, well, what would be next steps? He goes, well, before we get ahead of ourselves, do you accept? So I didn't know I had the option of not accepting, but I did embrace it as I trusted in the Lord Jesus would give me the graces to be a shepherd here, that He will give me the graces I needed to be a good shepherd in Mobile.
Was there a particular moment when you felt peace about accepting this role?
There was a certain peace after the phone call that, Jesus is going to come through for me, and He's always helped me, working through me. He's always provided good people in my life to help me to do the work of the Lord, and we're working together to shepherd the people that we're all a part of, and whatever diocese we're in. It's not just about the bishop being the shepherd, but all of us part of that shepherding care. And I will say that I have been blessed here in this archdiocese with so many good people who do wonderful works of goodness and lift people up in their dignity and love people for who they are, being Jesus for them and seeing Jesus in them, in those that we serve, and that we're all part of being that shepherding love of Jesus for others. So I always say, it's not just about who I am a shepherd, but helping all to understand we're all part of being the good shepherd for others.
Let's talk about that. You've spent your entire priesthood here in this Archdiocese of St. Louis. What has that meant to you? You grew up here in this parish in St. Wenceslaus in South St. Louis. Tell me about how your family influenced your vocation, and then I'd love to ask you a little bit more about other influences here.
Sure. Well, I have been very blessed. I'm part of a big family. I have 7 other siblings, and obviously my parents were in the home as well, but we also had our grandmother from my mother's side. We were in a 2-family flat, and she lived on the 2nd floor, which I thought she was part of our lives every day. And she was a very wise woman because she got away from the crazy 8 grandchildren she had to get back to her quiet digs in her own flat. So I always say, but She was such an influence in my life as well, because there were so many of us, and there was not a whole lot that we had materially with wealth, but the qualities that enriched our family life were so important. Being generous of heart, always concerned about each other, showing the care that we need to give as family members for one another, to be thoughtful, to remember that being about service and about doing what is good and to make our family holy. And I would say from holy families come holy vocations. I've been very blessed to have such a holy family to help nurture the holiness of answering the call of priesthood in my life. My grandmother was very much an influence in my life. She helped me with many of my devotions. I know my family liked to sleep in, so they would go to a later Mass, but my grandmother and myself walked here to this parish church every Sunday, and we had wonderful conversations as we came to the church as well as going back. But here, before Mass, we would pray the rosary, and I was on this side of the church. I remember we all had our certain assigned seating that we wanted, that no one better be in our seats for church. So we were here a good half an hour beforehand. And also she helped nurture my devotions to the Good Shepherd and to the Immaculate Heart of Mary and the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And I know as we prayed here at Mass, many times I was a server as well in this parish. Because it was the early Mass, many servers did not show up. So it just seemed like almost every Sunday I went back to help the priest to assist at Mass. And because of that closeness to our Lord and service to the parish family, I always found that the Lord blessed me to have a closer devotion to Christ in the Eucharist, and Him calling me to a greater love in Him and to be His love by answering the vocation of the priesthood.
From parish ministry to canon law to auxiliary bishop, you've had a lot of different roles here in this archdiocese over the year. How do you feel that each phase of your ministry and your priesthood has helped you to prepare for what's next?
You know, some people look at my resume of very special assignments I've had. They said, obviously, he can't keep a job. So I'm hoping to turn a corner on this and keep this position for a very long time. But I will say that each one of those opportunities of ministry helped me to, one, see how the Lord is calling me to greater ministry in the church, greater service to the church, but also it gave me a greater appreciation for what others do in their ministry. I have not functioned alone in a vacuum. You know, being with others in ministry has really been a blessing for me in my own ministry, because I see their dedication and their generous hearts and their love for what they do, the passions they have, and that helped me to also grow in greater holiness, and also to grow with a greater fervor, wanting to serve people in the goodness of what they need in their lives. And I always say that each one of those were opportunities where I could encounter the Lord in serving Him and others. So each one of those ministries have been a blessing. And I've always said, as you're called to ministry and called to greater service, you should also grow in greater gratitude, because the Lord gives us these opportunities to enrich our life in ministry and be enriched by the lives that we serve, because they have served us, being Christ for us as well.
What do you think you'll miss most about your ministry in the Archdiocese of St. Louis?
I always enjoyed getting out among the people, and especially with works of mercy and compassion. I will miss serving alongside of those who are touching people's lives, and especially by the goodness of their heart to share that goodness with others, and helping people to know, even in the midst of our crises and challenges and rebuilding of lives, and helping people to deal with the day-to-day challenges they have, that they're not alone and that someone cares. And I always say, I've been so blessed to be with so many who live the care of Christ for others and help us to be the care we need to be as a church.
Your heart for the poor, for the imprisoned, for the marginalized has been a very important part of your ministry. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that as well. First, with prison ministry, how did you first become involved in that and that advocacy around the death penalty?
Well, I will say I began to think about it after I received my phone call from Archbishop Pierre as an auxiliary bishop. I thought immediately, because I think whenever you're in the realm of whatever pontificate you're in, you kind of see your ministry from that lens. And I knew Pope Francis was very much attuned to saying all bishops need to be attuned to the peripheries of society. So after I received that phone call, and I will say even during that conversation, I thought about, I want to be about the works of mercy. That's going to be important for me as a bishop, because taking the lead from Pope Francis, I have to be always mindful of those in the peripheries of society. You know, Jesus is already there with the suffering and all those who are in need. Jesus invites us to be one with Him, to serve the need. And what a great blessing to be invited by Christ to be one with Him in ministry, to care for the needs of others. That is so enriching, and it shows that we're living the witness we are called to be as church, to be a witness in service to others.
So you talked about how these works of mercy are essential. How do you envision continuing that in Mobile?
I always say, you know someone by the calendar they keep, and I want my calendar to reflect what the church is living. I need to get to serving the poor, to be with those who are on death row, to be in prison ministry, to be with those who are immigrant brothers and sisters who are in need, who are experiencing so much anxiety and fears in their life in the midst of the climate, to see how we can be present to those who are feeling like in their journey of life that they feel like maybe they're journeying alone. And I will get in my calendar those priorities as well. And we're living the church as one who comes to serve, not to be served, and be Christ for others, and to serve all those who are in their own poverties of life, to enrich them by the goodness and love of Jesus.
So let's talk a little bit more about the Archdiocese of Mobile and what lies ahead. What are your impressions of the people and the culture of Southern Alabama so far?
Yes, I will say, when I went there, I was overwhelmed by the wonderful Southern charm and hospitality. I went out on the street just to be outside for a little while, and I was impressed that people were very friendly. They actually engaged me first before I said my hello to them. So it was just a good environment of seeing people that were very real and very, very friendly and very welcoming. So, and I found that especially in my dealings with the curia, as well as with the priests and the deacons and the seminarians, and all of them couldn't have been more gracious. And it came from Archbishop Rodi to everyone else serving the Archdiocese. They couldn't but be more pleasant and supportive of me in the time of transition. So I've been very blessed. I always say it's always a blessing to have a good team in place, and I believe that there is a very wonderful supportive team in place for me to do my ministry, to be of service to the Archdiocese of Mobile, and to be that shepherd I'm called to be for them.
So you're going to be a Metropolitan Archbishop.
Yes.
And you will oversee a province that covers both Mississippi and Alabama. What does that responsibility mean to you, and how are you preparing for that?
As I was reaching out, and I will continue to reach out to the suffragant diocese, you know, I want to make sure we have that relationship with one another, and also how we're called to serve the church in various issues. I just want to make sure we're there for each other. I always say, as a bishop, with other bishops, you know, we're all equal, we're brothers, and we're here to help each other. And any way I can be of help in the province, I want to be there for them. I did mention to our communications director that I want to have a meeting with him, because I want to see how our communications work together in the suffragan diocese, and how we can be a help with messaging, with catechesis, with addressing issues, with helping the faithful to continue to know that we're all engaged in the work of the church, and we're all laboring with the shepherding love of Jesus to do what the Lord is asking of us, not only for our own Catholic communities, but also for the greater community, to know we're making a difference and we're being partners with others of goodwill to truly do the good we're called to do.
The installation Mass is coming soon on September 3rd. What are your prayers coming into that day?
Yes, well, I will say, as it comes closer, I'm asking for people for more prayers. I need the prayers, because I know I need to be lifted up, asking the Lord to give me the graces I need. And on that, for the installation Mass, I wanted to make sure that people know that we're here to work together. I always say, I never wanted to be about me. I wanted to be about Jesus, the Good Shepherd, and about being church. So that should be the focus, and that would be my focus. I don't have the homily completely done, but I do want to say that in the homily, I want to mention that it is about looking to Jesus, about Him as Good Shepherd, and who He calls to be His church. And that should be reflected in our witness and work in the Archdiocese of Mobile. So I just pray not only for asking for prayers for myself, but for the Archdiocese. I did write a letter of gratitude to Pope Leo about my appointment, and in there I asked him for prayers for the Archdiocese of Mobile and for his blessing. So I know that we're in unity with one another, and we're unity as a universal church, and I know the Holy Father is also keeping us in prayer. So I not only ask for the prayers of those in the Archdiocese of Mobile, but continue prayers from the Archdiocese of St. Louis. You're my family. I hope that we don't forget about each other. We want to make sure that we're continuing to lift each other up in prayer, so we're all doing the work of the Lord together.
What are your hopes for the church in Mobile and the church more broadly in our world?
You know, I think one of the things that is so important is that we do have hope, and we have it in Jesus. So all of our hopes, remember, Jesus is with us, and I will be with you always. And I think that's important to remember. We can't be sustained in what the Lord asks of us without Him being there for us. And we need to remember the Lord is there. I think in the midst of those hopes that we have, how can we get people engaged? I always say one of the problems of today is being disconnected. People kind of live their own life without being connected to others. And we fail to see each other as we really need to see Him through the lens of Jesus, to see people as brothers and sisters, that we're family to each other, not only in our own Catholic Church, but beyond that to every one of the human family. We're a brother and sister to each other. And Pope Leo talks about that unity. I really mean working toward that unity, fostering that unity by what we do and working together to be engaged in being a brother and sister and treat everyone as such, and to live out that dignity we have as brothers and sisters to serve what is the need that is present.
Thank you for your time today. We're surely going to miss you here in the Archdiocese
Likewise.
of St. Louis, but we're very excited for the people of Mobile, Alabama, and just thank you for sharing your thoughts with us today.
Oh, you're welcome. And I will dearly miss all of you, but as I will always say, I will miss you, but I will always have a special place in my heart and prayers for all of you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.